Hi, my name is Karen Holmes. I'm the founder and director of the World Peace Organization for the One World Government. Today I want to talk about the rationale for a new change, an opportunity for mankind to function on a higher level, and that relates to Ukraine and the situation there regarding the eastern section of the country and how it is culturally closer to Russia than Ukraine. Many people in that area are separatists, and they are culturally, they speak Russian, and they're more prone to, let's say, lean towards Russia than the Ukraine government. And the separatist idea in any country comes about because the borders have usually been redrawn by acts of war and treaties and agreements and instead of around cultures. The reason for that is because of natural resources and control of natural resources and control of strategic locations to give one country an advantage over the other. But in the era of the international government, all the countries will be equal. It's like why you could say there's a separatist movement in Northern California and Southern Oregon, where I'm from. There's the people in Northern California, the far northern part of California, consider themselves to be more like Southern Oregon than they are like the Los Angeles and San Francisco area. So there's a kind of like a movement. It's not, I don't know how serious it really is. I call it the state of Jefferson. Okay, so now the separatists, but we're states. We're all part of the United States. So it's just an idea of a cultural redrawing of borders. And that's the same thing that's happening there in Ukraine. There are actually, rather than to redraw the borders, attempt to redraw the borders through an act of war, a better way to do that would be to support the plan for the international government and, let's say, take the long way around by supporting it and then withdraw the borders with cultures, redraw the borders with cultures. And the same thing is happening, let's say, in Canada, between the French-speaking and the English-speaking parts of the country. Okay, in the United States, like I said, here we have the state of Jefferson that might decide to be another state. But when it's drawn around a cultural basis, then the country borders could be a matter of making, there's no need for a strategic location. There's more aligned, we're making win-win agreements between nations. So the international government will prevent wars from happening, and then there'll be, over a period of time, then they'll be drawing these borders. And the same thing, you could say the same thing with Scotland and the, not the United Kingdom, but the Britain area. There's the English, and then the Scottish, and the Welsh, and the Irish, Northern Irish area. So those are all places. By the time this redrawing around the cultural levels occurs, there'll be, the prophecy that we got at the prayer circle was that there'll be about 500 countries. And then the international government will start to grow the number of people, and it will be each culture and each religion needs to be respected because of this, that they have their ancestral land, and then they have their own niche, their own, based on their talents and gifts, their own natural resources. So, for example, I'm going to use, Italy, you have the areas that are famous for their leather, their fine leather, or the crystal. How about England with the silver and the different metals that they have mined there in the past? You have the niche idea that comes from their cultural aspect of it. When China, for example, has gone into other countries, like I saw that it was Baccarat crystal, I think that was bought by the Chinese. When you have the Chinese buying up these very luxury brands, they're high quality luxury brands, then they're putting the people, the craftsmen, you could say, might be squeezed out of that niche. That is something where that it doesn't respect the culture of it. And the same thing, let's say that Confucius taught the principles that were in with the faith of the pure and the planning circle. If you're creating the life you want, one of the things you have to do is you have to function from your own capacity. And Confucius taught that principle. If you have China, for example, buying up all the luxury brands, are they watering down the brand, the idea by putting their own craftsmen in there, saying we are really good? But what about this whole idea, wiping out all the craftsmen that have been there? I bought a pepper mill that was grown, comes from a company that's France, that's been in production for hundreds of years. I would like to buy certain things that are holding these craftspeople with respect. Yesterday I went to a thrift store and I bought a Native American basket. It was on a shelf with all these different baskets, and it was, let's say, made in China, little baskets, which are okay. But I found a Native American basket, and that's the one I picked, not the one from China that is mass produced and has very little let's say staying power, or something that you want to keep for a long time and pass it on heirloom generation by generation. That's what we're looking for, is to find the niche, if you want to use the French term. The whole idea is for everybody to find their niche, and on an individual basis, and to have something that makes you unique, something. And that's where in our country, the United States, our niche is our Constitution, because that's what makes the United States unique. It brought people from all over the world and turned us into a melting pot. Our founding fathers, when they wrote that Constitution, guaranteed rights to people. We're not a perfect country by any means, but what that did was it set us up as a very unique place where people came here, considered us to be a place of freedom and rights and all the unalienable rights, and a land of opportunity where other countries weren't doing that. But that, if we are a melting pot because of our Constitution, that's what we can market with other nations and allow other nations. But at the same time, if we have a Constitution, then we can also protect those other countries, their own niche that allows them to work with them on these win-win agreements. So China, if they're buying up luxury brands and watering down them because they're proud of this idea, they're not standing on the principles of what Confucius taught. That is an idea that you could say that on the opposite side of the circle, of the circle of religions, the faith of the pure ray, there's Gautama Buddha, who taught the idea of win-win agreements, and if you take the Chinese and you bring these two ideas together, then you have one teaching the idea of functioning from your capacity, the other one coming up with the idea of win-win agreements, and it comes together. So what we don't need to do is to have one country take over the world and control it to gain control of natural resources. If Vladimir Putin would like to bring in that culture, there's no guarantee that that area of Ukraine is going to actually become part of the new Russian Federation in the future. But there's no need to wage war, because the principle that stops a war is equality. For conflict resolution, everyone has to be considered equal. To annex a country, a land that is not part of yours because you consider that to be part of your culture or whatever, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to end up being part of your country in the future. You'll find that it only comes down to one choice. The three choices come down to only one choice, and that is to do, when you're backed into a corner, the only thing that you can do is to turn around and to go through the door that you can't see. Let's say when you're backed into a corner, you're facing out, you're facing your adversary. But the idea is to turn around and go through and to do what's in everyone's best interest. The corner is actually where that idea came from was the idea of a rune that looks like a figure 8. It's circular thinking patterns, that you have to do something but you don't know what to do, but you have to do something but you don't know what to do. You have to do something but you don't know what to do. And this is what causes hurricanes, and this is what causes tornadoes. So when a group of people come together, many people come together, the energy associated with that circular pattern is, I have to do something but I don't know what to do. Like the economy. The mill is closing down. I have to do something. You're getting older. You can't function. You have to do something but you don't know what to do. Now, the idea behind that is to go through the door. You have that area right there, and that's our conflict resolution brochure. That's actually a Norse rune that they came up their idea, their letters came up with the idea of that. And I'm going to be working, I'm channeling a book with a man from that area who helped to come up with all these ideas. Anyway, I'll go into that in future. Okay. But the idea of this is to go around in this planning circle and to do what's in everyone's best interest. And the idea is also the principles associated with equality in the conflict resolution idea, which is, for conflict resolution, the first principle comes first, is the idea of equality. That's a requirement for that allows conflict resolution. All right, and that is the idea of standing up in protest, and that is what the principle of that Islam teaches, standing up in protest. And so I could go on and talk about this for a long time, but I just wanted to let you know that Russia, instead of trying to bring in create another Soviet Union idea and expanding out its borders and bringing in cultures and infiltrating into the area and taking back what they consider to be theirs, it isn't necessarily going to work because the borders are, if he's attempting to redraw the border to give him the annex that land because of the culture, a better way to do it is to first start with the plan for the international government, because then that avoids the war. When you wage war, the people who have been dragged into war are denied equality, and they stand in protest. So if Ukraine is there, a tiny country compared to Russia and the United States, if it's right there in the middle, and you have all these NATO countries, and you have this, the people there are being denied their equality. This is a war. They're being denied their equality. So the principle that stops this war is equality. All three countries in the international government are considered equal. The same thing applies with people. And I wanted to just say that we're coming into the period where we're focusing on Moses and Judaism. And that, the qualities, the principles, we're going to say that Moses was involved with the idea of being a slave. We're talking about Prince Andrew and sex trafficking, and that issue related to Jeffrey Epstein and the Ghislaine Maxwell. Okay, the idea of that is people who consider this is something that will be addressed when we write the Constitution for the international government, and that is that are you considering, when you consider man, the family of man, are you considering just men? Are you considering men and women? Or are you considering men, women, and children? Are children meant to be sold? Are they? So we do not address cultural issues, but this is something that has to be addressed, is how will we address this issue on the international level? The founding fathers of the United States Constitution, they couldn't deal with slavery, and that didn't come out until the Civil War. The slavery, when Lincoln with the Emancipation Proclamation, we're looking at having to address these issues of, is it man? Is this man? Is this man? Is this man? Or is this man? Men, women, and children. Okay, where is this? Who has rights? And then you could say that down here is the unborn children and abortion. What rights do they have in a world where it's men, women, and children, or men and women, men, women, children, and the unborn? What rights do every group of people have, every age? So we're looking at how the international government will address these issues and then go from there. So all of these issues are going to be addressed, and we're going to look at them as the part of the creation of the international government. So I ask you to like, share, and subscribe, because this information is important. Thank you.